Hello. We could not get the video to come up. I had to close out the page and restart it, but we are here. Good evening and welcome, witches.
Good evening and welcome. And it's so strange to come on camera and not know how you look and have to wait till the camera comes on. You're like, how's my hair? Wait.
I know. I'm like, are we straight? How's the angle? So crazy. Hello, NR. I'm not sure your name, so I just have to call you by your initials and what's on the screen. We are, hey, Selena.
Hi, Selena. Hi, NR.
We are Kat and Jamie of the New Witch Academy of Modern Magic doing our episode 4 of A Witch Reacts. This is our summer series while we sort of take a break from the other meetups. And the agenda tonight is Kat and I have each picked out 2 questions in which we are blindly asking each other and getting the other one's reaction. And this is weird for us because usually we talk about everything before we get on camera. And now we're keeping secrets and just saying it all for the first time.
Yeah.
You get to see our actual blind reaction. I have no idea what she has in store for me, and she doesn't know what I have in store for her.
Nope, we don't.
We find these questions on different witchcraft spaces where people ask things and we're like, okay, that's kind of out there or different or weird or, just never heard of it. As a practicing witch for 25 years, I've seen and heard a lot. I've coached a lot of new witches, but some stuff that comes up, I'm like, okay, that's very out there. That's very new. I don't know. So we bring all of that to you guys in this series, I guess, the summer series. Yes.
Yeah. So first I want to say it's Nonica, I believe. Nonica. Hello, Nonica, Selena, cool. Denise,
Natasha. Hi, Natasha.
Jenny, MC from New York, and Susan.
And Susanna.
Susanna. I'm so sorry.
The print is very small.
The print is like 4 point.
I know. One day we'll graduate to big girl materials and not use a tiny laptop.
One day.
One day.
All right. So I got to go first last week, so I'm going to let you go first this week.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I can't wait to hear your reaction on this because it's probably something that we have possibly talked about before. And I'm just so ready to see how you answer it.
Oh boy.
I feel like I'm putting her on like the hot seat.
She's putting me on the hot seat. You guys know I've only been doing this. I'm a newer witch, 4 years.
I mean,
4 years. She's like, that's not new anymore.
It doesn't feel new. Yeah.
So anyway,
okay. Well, as you know, there was a full moon not long ago. And in one of the chats, there was a question about charging your crystals under the full moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Easy peasy. Now add in a new element.
Okay.
What do you do if it's storming outside? Is it still, and I'm just going to be like, and go, because she didn't explain other things. She's just like, what do I do now? Can I still charge? Basically what you think.
Okay. Super interesting that came up because when it was storming here on Monday.
It was storming
here on Monday. Well, actually, it was building up in the east. So I thought we were going to get some rain showers because it looked like rain. It felt like rain. So what I did is I went and took a glass bowl and put it outside because I was hoping to catch some storm water and store it. So, but as far as if I were, I think that the moon is still powerful enough to charge crystals, even though there are clouds in the sky, because later on that night, so I never got any rainwater. The bowl is still out there.
It's in hopes.
and it's empty. But later that night, when it was still cloudy in the sky, I let my dog out in the backyard. I could still see his shadow. So I knew the moon was there. So the moon is like really powerful.
It's going to be there. I agree.
And so I think you could still charge your crystals. I probably wouldn't put them outside, like under the storm. I would put them under cover because some of them shouldn't get wet. You don't want them wet. And that's the thing. They don't have to sit in direct moonlight because I step out on my lanai, which is undercover, of course, and screened in. And there's still lots of, that you can feel the energy of the moon. You can feel the light of the moon, even though it's not directly on your crystals. Yeah. So I think you still can charge storm or no storm. And, if you wanted to, you could think of it as more powerful because you have the addition of the electricity that's going on with the storm. So the power of the lightning and then the power of the moon. And to me, that just says supercharge.
It's always the layers, right? All right, first we're just charging under the moon.
Oh my God, I did so good, you guys.
I know. First off, that's why she doesn't get to claim being a new witch anymore because she answered it like Amazing. Okay.
Like I'm an old witch, older
like
witch.
you've been doing this a
like
long
I've been
time.
doing it a
Okay.
while.
The only thing that I would add to this is remember that when we charge crystals, we set an intention for them. And as long as everything matches up, I mean, I always think about witchcraft and spells or rituals, everything in layers. First layer is your goal is like charge them under the full moon. Cool. Now you got a storm coming in. Okay, what crystals would you like to charge under the full moon that's like stormy or powerful? Like Kat said, electricity. What about water? Water is literally the moon's element. So you're just having all of this moonlight reflected in raindrops. So I thought it was like, heck yeah, I'd take that any day. I'll go charge myself under a rainy night of a full moon. That sounds amazing.
That sounds
I love
amazing.
it. Yeah, I agree with everything. I have nothing else to really add. High five. You listen. That's what I say.
Hey guys, you learn after you do this for like 4 years and you do meetups.
And I quiz her.
And you do meetups and you hang out with your daughter all the time
man.
who's a full-fledged witch. So, okay. So my question is a little bit longer.
Oh boy. Okay.
Or I could start with the easy one because it's right in. Okay. All right. Okay.
Do the first one that you have.
All right. So this was more like first of all, I'm going to pose the question. The question was, help. I've lost my magical self. How do I get it back?
Oh, yes,
so for a little bit of background, this was the backstory situation. My life is a mess, physically and metaphorically. I'm embarrassed to let anyone in my car, which is filled with stuff, not trash, but like toys and crap of all kinds. My house is the same. I used to have my shit together a few years ago. I don't know what happened. How do I get back to my old self? What do you have to say?
First off, I love this because I think that everyone goes through a phase like this where we lose our magical selves, or at least we feel really disconnected from it. And we have to figure out, how do I get myself back there where I feel comfortable, confident, and like empowered, right? Things happen to us in life, or like we get down, and then our empowerment starts to go away because you don't feel like you're in control of all the things, you know? So if I hear toys in the car, I'm thinking kids. So there's probably other elements in this person's life that feel like it's running her life more than she's running her life. So my first go-to, just because she said mess, stuff holds energy. And when we hold on to a lot of shit, we're going to get a lot of shit because it's just going to hold all the things that are going on. So clean it out, let it go. Everything that you can live without, let it go. That would be my first thing. Create small spaces at first. Like say if her whole house is a wreck and her car, find one spot to clean up and then dedicate that and say, I'm not letting anything else touch this space that doesn't belong here, have purpose, and bring me joy, make me happy. And then you move on to the next space. And the people who possibly also come into your life, because listen, when you have a lot of crap laying around, people who like stuff start bringing you more stuff and they add to your problem. And you've got to like set healthy boundaries with people. Don't let them leave crap at your house. No, you don't need it. I have 50 Tupperware bowls. I don't need another one, or whatever it is. I don't need to keep this takeout box. Like whatever the story is around stuff, start eliminating that, and that will instantly lighten the load. Like you will just feel better. And if you have less stuff, it's harder for your house to get messy. Even with kids do not need a lot of stuff. I promise you, like
we were just talking about this.
They just don't need a lot of stuff. And if you feel bad for not giving it to them, then there's other shadow work that needs to be done for that. Like maybe you didn't grow up with a lot, so you want to give your kid a lot because you're making up for things that were in your childhood. I've seen it. I know people who have experienced it, and it is something to overcome and work through because you're actually reliving your childhood in a different way. You're in control of it, and you're doing these things. I feel like I'm getting way off track because I'm this clutter person that like I love to help people sort out and organize. I always say that the little organization boxes and labels, if I could get a heart on that's what it would do it for me. I'm not kidding. Like I go into IKEA with all of its storage solutions and I'm like, oh God, this is porn for me. I absolutely love storage stuff and everything having its place and fitting. That's my Virgo side though. So I just love it. And when we have that creates control, right? When we organize our stuff and everything has a place and there's not extra crap laying everywhere. Yeah. It also, dealing with stuff as it comes in like mail. A lot of people get really behind on their mail and that's overwhelming. So to start the process of doing it and dealing with the things one day at a time, people, one day, one step, one piece of paper, one toy, one space, just make it one and then do something else the next day. That's how I would restart it. As far as so that's like the organizational side, and like you said, this was a big question. The organizational side and getting your life together in the physical sense, but in the magical sense, I would start really taking time out for yourself. I would take walks in nature barefooted to reground yourself. It's effortless. You don't have to have a mantra, say anything, do anything. You're just outside and absorbing that all the negative ions in the world that help you feel better and make you happy. And then you're grounding yourself to the earth. That's where I would start with that, because after you do that a few times, you're going to feel refreshed. It's naturally going to happen for you. So I would start there.
Okay. So I do have something to add to that, surprisingly.
Hey, no, I love it. Oh no. As my kid calls me, and it just took everything away.
It took our whole
screen. I didn't know that was possible.
Screen disappeared.
Did you guys see our blank faces? Because we were on to us. You guys disappeared, and that's because my kid was calling. And always.
So,
okay. What are you adding?
So, her question was, and her question was she had 2 parts.
Yeah.
But the last part of it was, how do I get my old self back? And I guess
old self. Okay.
And so I guess to that I would say is that, well, first of all, if things were different, like several years ago, I would be journaling to figure out like, where did I get off track? So that would be one of the ways that you might just look back and like, what has happened? What's come into your life? Yeah. What are the things that have changed since you felt really magical and in control? And
empowered.
Like magical, empowered,
because magical is empowered.
Between now, where you've let all of this stuff sort of overrun you. But the other part of that is, so journaling about like, okay, so what happened? When did things start going sideways for me? Because something changed along the way. Maybe a person came into your life, or there was some big change. Maybe you got a smaller house. Maybe you moved. Maybe you changed jobs. I feel like something probably big happened over the course of these couple of years. And if you can go back to that and go like, oh yeah, well, and you may not be dealing with something. There may be a situation in there. But the other thing, and I think the most important thing for me is this: sometimes you don't need to get your old self back. Sometimes you're going to the next level.
Yeah. And that's uncomfortable and hard.
And I think that what Jamie says about like, okay, here you are today, you've got the situation, it's making you unhappy. Let's look at small ways you can start to tackle it and feel like yourself. Take care of the car first, or take care of your bedroom first, or clean up or start ridding yourself of the things, because I totally agree. Like having a bunch of stuff is like, first of all, we don't need it, but we are programmed or we're marketed to believe that we need so much. We need all these things, right? So we go shopping. Hey, I am a retail therapy person. I go to the GW, which is short for the Goodwill. I go to the Goodwill like every other Saturday and just roam through. I got this shirt there, you guys. So what do you think? It's pretty cool. I go because I like to recycle too. But for me, it's just like therapeutic to sit there and just go through the racks looking. It's kind of like, it's my zoning time. So anyway.
And as long as that doesn't become a problem, because that is the prime example of how hoarding starts. Not saying you're a hoarder by
no,
any
I'm not,
means.
because I know
retail therapy does that.
But I know better. So what I'm doing is, as I bring things in, I'm looking in my closet. I'm like, what haven't I worn in a really long time? And I'm taking a pile out while I've got a pile in the garage. It's going to Goodwill while I'm also trying to update my wardrobe. But I think the most important thing is like, sometimes we're evolving. And so getting your old self back may not be the goal. The goal may just be to get yourself to a place where you're feeling your magical self again, your empowered self again. And I think the first, one of the first steps is to start getting rid of some of the things that you have too much of, because clearly you do.
That's
if it's everywhere. Yeah. If you can't manage it, if you have so much laundry that you're just constantly folding laundry, you have too many clothes.
Yeah.
And your kids have too many clothes. Yeah. And I know this because we have a family member who did this, and it's like, you have way too many clothes for these kids. They don't need 77 pairs of shorts.
It's the reducing thing that really helps.
Yeah.
I will mention really quick that if this is a person that's between 27 and like 31, or anybody out there who's listening right now, if you're between like 27 and 31, there's something called the Saturn return. Okay. This is when you are literally, your Saturn comes back around and it starts laying down rules and changing stuff for you that probably makes you pretty uncomfortable. It's a parent figure coming in and saying, all right, you need to deal with all of this. We need to step this up. We need to change. We got to, career change, move, whatever it is. it urges you to change. So if you're feeling that, and this is around that age time, that's also what's happening. There's pressure on you from the astrological sense. So
well, and that
that's good to
happened. So, and I
understand.
can tell you that for me, that happened at age 30, like 29. I was almost 30. The summer of my 29th year, I had this, like, it's like I woke up, you
Yeah.
know, and I
The
just, I
Saturn
had
return.
I had this epiphany that I
Yes.
didn't want to live this life that I'd been living throughout my 20s. And I literally like went to school, got a job, did everything, like a office job, which I hadn't worked, you know, ever. I'd been like, you know,
She did all the normal adult boring things, I think. Like started college, got an office job, you know.
Yeah. So, and that was 30, but there's there's years building up to that where you're starting to feel, I don't know if it's like a discontent or like something's off because
you're not on your path. That's
Yeah.
what it starts to feel like is, this is not the life I want to be living. I don't want to be here anymore. You know, I want to change something. And sometimes we don't even know what that is, but you're looking for freedom. You're looking for more satisfaction. You're looking for a better relationship, whatever it is. Or you've been partying and you're like, I'm ready to like settle down. I want a family. I want a house. Like I want to do that thing. It usually is whatever you're not doing. And it drives you more towards making decisions based on the feeling of what will feel like it completes me. What is that puzzle piece that I'm missing right now?
Well, and for me, it was, I was going to divorce. I knew that my marriage was ending. I had 3 children. We had 3 children. And then
we had 3 children. Yes.
My husband and I had 3 children. And, you know, after 10 years of trying and just the same things happening over and over again, you just get to a point where it's like, okay, nothing's ever going to change. So I have to change.
Yeah.
So what my mindset was, is my kids deserve better than this. And I need to be a better mom for them. And so that's what did it for me. And that was the whole thing. That was the catalyst of that. I felt that my children deserved something better. So if you're in that,
that age range, it could be going on. And if you know somebody in that age range, expect them to start feeling and thinking that way as well.
You will see a shift.
It does shift. Yeah.
You'll see a shift. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's my second question.
What's your second question?
Okay. So I love this one because I never thought about it like this. When I do spells and rituals, it is usually very much about me. I'm rarely doing things for other people. I may help people with spells and rituals, but I don't like sit down and do a spell usually for other people. So this question really got me because I felt it. Like, I understand. I just get it. All right, you guys ready? Or are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So in the ritual or spell work of cord cutting, if everybody's familiar with that, it's where you light 2 candles with cords around them, you burn them evenly. There's a purpose to trying to let go, break paths, get away from them. So can you do a cord cutting for somebody else who is addicted to drugs or substance so that they can so it can stop their addictive behavior? Was basically the question of what she was getting at. You know, she wants to do a cord cutting, but it's for somebody else and it's because of an addiction that they want to help them try to stop. And go. I know, right? It's heavy.
Well, you know, it's always challenging to do spells that impact or affect other people or change other people's behavior. I feel like it's always, I don't want to say it's not successful. I just think it's hard to change other people. So that's my first thought that comes to mind. Is like, I'm not sure how effective a cord cutting for someone else or any kind of spell for somebody else is going to be, because you don't have the power. The person that you're trying to help, which is a really awesome goal, but the person you're trying to help has free will and they can continue to make the choices that they're making. And so, and they need to want to do that. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. And then I guess what I would recommend to this person instead of a cord cutting is to find other ways that they might be able to send good, positive vibes and energy to this person to help them heal and maybe find some ways to support them. Like, I think that you could give them what I would do if it was me and I had a friend who was suffering some kind of affliction like that. I'd be researching some crystals and like, okay, what kind of crystals deal with addiction? And let me see if I can get like a necklace, a bracelet, of stones to put in their pockets, things around their house because those crystals carry vibrations, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything but the vibrations of those particular stones.
Yeah.
And so those I feel like can be effective. And then a lot of, well, I was going to say pray, but a lot of just trying to manifest good things around them, but to specifically address someone else's affliction, addiction, or whatever is really hard to do. And I'm not sure as witches, I'm just going to speak for myself.
Yeah, just right from your heart.
I'm going to speak for myself. I would not spend the time on that, because I would not believe, and this is why it wouldn't work either. I would not believe that I could affect a change in other people. I don't believe that. So now, if you are a witch who does believe that, then go forth and do spells, because if you believe it, you can manifest it.
Yes.
So that's my answer. What do you have to say?
My biggest thing would be, if you're going to do a cord cutting spell for someone, they need to be there. Make them a part of it. Help them talk about it. Help them be there in the moment. Like, don't do it alone without them. I would just say, make them a part of the process. Explain to them everything that's going on, and they need to be a willing participant, because like Kat said, I agree with people with free will, and I don't know what their journey is supposed to lead them to. I don't know what epiphanies are supposed to happen for them. I don't know what their, soul's goals are here on earth. I just know that if I saw someone in pain and they asked for my help, I would try almost anything to help them, if they were my loved one or friend or whatever, because I don't want to see people suffering. And I don't think that we come here with the intent on getting hooked on any kind of drugs. For myself, when I was in the military, you guys, I suffered some pretty bad PTSD, and I did turn to alcohol for my last year and a half in the Navy. I mean, I pretty much put it in my coffee, had it at lunch, and when I got off work, that was what I did. I was coping. But what worked great for me is when I got out of the Navy, I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't around those super toxic people where I was just trying to deal. So I find that I feel very lucky that I was so, I could have called myself an alcoholic probably because of my frequency of drinking, by the book, I would have been called an alcoholic, but I did it to cope, and there was nothing I could do. I couldn't break my military contract. I had to wait to get out to do things. So in my own experience, if somebody was dealing with it, I would try to ask them, what is it that the drug use, alcohol, whatever it is, gives you that you're not getting in your regular waking life? What are you searching for? What do you need? You need freedom from something. You need to look through pains and deal with them, understand how people hurt you, because so much can come from addiction, child abuse, sexual abuse. This is diving into some deep, deep shit, and understanding that first, therapies of some kind, even if it's cognitive behavioral therapy, where they start to understand why your behaviors are following a trend. I know they say that alcoholism is hereditary. I don't know. I mean, there's all these things that we can look through. And this is using our spiritual or witchy vibes to figure out, in the mundane world, what can we do? Where can we tap into? How do we call teachers towards us? So what Kat was saying, as far as changing somebody's will or manifesting, what I've done for people in the past is I actually do a mantra that says, please have a teacher show up in their life that really gives them a lesson that changes them. Give them a story, whatever it is. But I don't think that it's me. I'm calling in their, team of light or something. I'm trying to bring in an outside source, not my source, but something that's meant for them to help change them. And if it doesn't happen, I'm that's not my story. It's not my life. I don't know what's supposed to happen with them. So I don't hold myself accountable, but I try to do as much positive things for them as I possibly can, with setting healthy boundaries, obviously, because people can pull you into their lives and start messing up yours. I mean, been through that as well. I've tried to help people who were not helpable or wasn't ready for help and had messed up things happen to me. So healthy boundaries for yourself, do what you can. And, in the end, nobody gets out alive, right? It's a fucked up way to think about it, but we're all here to learn lessons and then move back into our spiritual selves.
Well, and I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind if you have somebody in your life that's really suffering with some kind of addiction or even a really serious health issue, is to remember that we're all here on our own journeys, and each of us picked the path that we're on to learn lessons, to learn lessons in this lifetime. Yeah. And as hard as it is to watch people go through terrible things, there's I believe there's purpose in it, even though we can't fathom it because
because it seems inhumane to say, oh, this was supposed to happen. Your child was supposed to die. Like, no, that's not what we're saying exactly.
No,
it's just that you can only do what you can do for others. That doesn't take away from your own mental health as well. Even as witches, even being magical beings that tap into something, we sometimes have to watch the awful things happen in the world. And that is one of the reasons why empathetic people who can feel everything around us, we become depressed ourselves. We run out of energy because we're like, where do we recharge? There's so much crap going on around us, where's the good spaces?
Well, an addiction to, drug addiction is pretty serious because it's not just chemical. It's not just physical, but it's also mental. So,
Yeah.
And I speak from experience, and you have to get to a point where you're just done with it, where it's no longer giving you what you need, what you're trying to either escape from. Typically it's I don't know if it's typically, but it's like feelings that you don't want to feel and you don't want to deal with.
Stuff you don't want to deal with.
Stuff that you don't want to deal with. And so you either drink or you get high or whatever to not deal with that stuff. So, but again, that's that person's journey. So
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
have realistic expectations, know what you're getting yourself into, involve the person.
And
we went through a lot on that. That was also a deep, big one.
And the other thing I think about, Jamie, is when your husband was in the hospital with COVID, and he was,
he was in the hospital with pneumonia from COVID. Yeah.
Okay, so he was like, this was during like we weren't
2020.
So I don't know. Everybody wasn't locked down, but they put him in a unit by himself in a ward and left him there, and the nurses wouldn't even go in. So what she did, and they wouldn't let her visit. So what she did is she made a spell jar with all of this stuff in it to help with respiratory things and gave it to him. So something like that might help. Somebody could potentially like bring some energy into their life that's positive. But
what you said with stones is really good, because the things that I put into the spell jar, and I actually told him specifically, I said, you have to open it many times a day, and I need you to breathe in, because it had jasper, which is really good for the blood system, and it had juniper, which is any of the pine sappy trees are really good for the inhalation system, your lungs and all of that. And I said, I actually brought like half tree branches. I know the nurses probably thought I was like, what the hell? I was like, he needs greenery in his room. Okay. You're locking him in a hospital with no fresh air that's recirculated. Like, this is bullshit. So I would bring him a fresh tree branch. And I was like, listen, it's good for his lungs. And they're just like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. Like, take the bag away. But I saw him every single morning so that he had that fresher air to try to help his lungs heal it, because that's my therapy.
And let me tell you what I saw him every morning means. She's in the parking lot of the hospital, and he's like on the fourth floor looking out, seventh floor window, looking down on her, and they're,
we're eating breakfast together. And
they're eating breakfast, her in the parking lot in the car, and him and his.
I drove to the top of the parking garage and sat up there.
Okay.
Every day, because, we didn't know when he went that he had pneumonia.
And I want to back up for just a minute about the crystals. No, not about the crystals, but about the addict.
Okay.
So if you guys have any doubt that we are here, that we're souls here having a human experience, read or listen to the book Destiny of Souls or Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, because it will change your life.
It's a whole new elevation of information. Even if you don't believe everything that's in there, like, just take it with a grain of sugar or whatever they say. But those books, I've been doing this for 25 years and listening to them, because I got the book last year from Liz, but I didn't read it. I gave it to her, and then she got the audiobook, and I'm like, now I got to read it. Journey of Souls was the first one, and then Destiny of Souls is the second one. And it's about a guy who does past life regression, and life in between lives stuff. All of it is so fascinating. If you want to know about the spirit world or what happens to us after we die.
Yeah. And you will, once you listen to those books, you will truly understand that we come back again and again. If we don't get the lessons in this life that we came here to learn, we're going to come back again and do it. It's like the people who commit suicide. And I'm sorry if this is a touchy subject. I do apologize for anybody that this is a trigger for. And I'm not making light of it. So I do apologize if this is upsetting, but for people, for an example, who commit suicide, there is a story of somebody who commits suicide.
There's so many stories
in one of those,
all
a
the
soul,
deaths,
and it's like, you know, when they did this, when they committed suicide, and then got to the other side, they're like, I did it again. You know, they're trying to get past whatever it was that causes them to take their own life in this world, and so they have to keep coming back and repeating the lesson until we get it. And then you'll also see how you have a soul group of people. And, you know, like we know that we
know. You would meet people and you're just like, I know you. I've known you before. Like
in other lives, in past lives, you were in different roles. And so you really understand that on a level that you can't understand it just by hearing that, you know, we're souls having a human experience. Listen to or read these books.
Stories
they will change your life.
Yeah,
they really will. Okay, next and final question. And we're 1 minute late. This is going to be
question.
This is going to be really quick. Okay. And then, so the question is, does it matter where you store your moon water after bringing it in from outside?
Ooh, so this is personal preference and how we think about energy, because for myself, I am one of those witches who, after I make moon water, I try not to leave it in direct sunlight. It is in my office. I have little cubbies for it, but I'm like, I just sort of believe like, well, the difference between moon energy, light and dark, you know, and sun energy is just different for me. So I don't ever want the bottle to get too much. I don't want it to get direct sunlight, number one, for myself. And I have told it, I've given it a purpose. So I intentionally set it out, not just like your moon water, that's it. I always look at what sign is the moon in, what does that correlate with energy? And so now I call it this, like, my Aries full moon water, you guys, is literally called like activation water, fire water. It's like start shit, get stuff done. That's how I think of it. So I give it an intention of the element associated with the zodiac sign. So if I'm making like Cancer full moon water, I also associate that with family. So that would be like family full moon water, but it would be emotions. It would be that Cancer side for me. So because I make it in that way, I'm like, the sun cannot touch here. It has to stay kind of in a shelf. There's light on it, but it's not direct sunlight. So for me, I keep it separate because in my mind, and this is why our practices are so personal and different. If it sits out in sunlight, I'm like, well, then it's sun bleached now. Like it's sun water. Yeah. So that's just for my own practice. And the one thing that I do, I'll make moon water. Like I make moon water often and then I don't use it. If I don't use it by the time that next full moon comes around, so basically 1 year, because I look for the same zodiac sign, I dump it out in my garden. I'm like, here you go, plants. Here's some nice Cancer moon water to everybody feels like family or whatever. So I do keep track of it. And there are tons of signs that I don't do moon water for because I like earth signs. I don't do any earth sign moon waters for whatever reason. I don't know why. But the water signs and the fire signs, because I want to get shit started or I want to work through some stuff. That's usually, so I got shadow work and like start a project. Those are my moon waters.
Okay, so I would say my answer to that is it depends what you're going to do with the moon water. Are you going to ingest it? Because I think if you are, you should put it in the refrigerator because you don't want it sitting on a shelf for a year. But other than that, like I made moon water on a blue moon like 2.5 years ago.
It was a year and a half ago.
Okay, yeah, on a blue moon because it was a blue moon. And I don't have anything to use it for. So it's just been sitting around. I'm like, this is blue moon water. And it's just going to be blue moon water until I decide to use it. But I love your idea of making moon water depending on the sign and then giving it a name so that you know what to do with it. Because sometimes we make moon water and we're like, okay, now I made moon water. Now what? Now what? Now what do I do with it?
So I actually I use my old liquor bottles. Again, not an alcoholic, you guys, but I do like to drink. We're thinking about actually making a little short series on all kinds of witchy drinks. So in the future, we always have a ton of projects in our head. But with these older alcohol bottles, especially if they're a cork top, boom. So when I buy things at the store, I always think about, is this container reusable for some way? So buying things in glass rather than plastic, because I know that if I wanted to store anything else in it, the glass and the metal lid is going to last it's going to be a lot better than the plastic is. So with my alcohol bottles, it's the same thing. I will buy a little bit more expensive bottle because it has a cork top and a pretty label. And I'm like, yeah, all I got to do is like put a little sticker over that and write on it, this is my Aries moon water, this is my blue moon water, this is my whatever water. And then I keep it in a shelf, because if you don't label it, I will forget. And I don't ever see people really label it, but I like to give it an intention. So on the water label, I give it my intention. I was like, all right, when you are feeling super lazy, you need to use this Aries moon water, because it's about starting. It's the, first zodiac science, like create it, start getting it done. And then of course, if it was Pisces, it's like time to relax and dream and sleep. Great.
Okay. So we're at 7:36 and we're going to wrap this up. But before we go, we have one last question from Selena. She wants to know what you're drinking.
Oh my gosh. Listen, I'm drinking a very bad example of a martini, and it's not even technically martini because I'm using vodka. And it has probably 8 olives in it.
I think it has like a dozen.
No, it's like 8. Let me see.
I think it's a
3,
dozen.
5.
She's drinking.
It actually has 8. I'm really good. That is actually 8. That's what I'm drinking. But we had another question too. Okay, so M. Manganese, yes, said, is there a spell to get what you want in life?
Oh, wow.
Because that's not a small topic at all.
No, that's not a small topic.
Listen, to get what you want in life, there is one thing to do. Label, name it, and then set a goal on how you can get it. Like, that's it. It's not really a spell, but what you can do with a spell is ask for the things to come into your life that make it easier for you to get that goal, whatever it is. But most of the time, this is a big coaching question that I get a lot. I used to think that people wanted to learn witchcraft so that they could feel something, or they could connect or something. No. Do you know the number one question I get as a spiritual coach? I want to figure out what my purpose in life is. I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for that. I don't know why. I thought people wanted to feel connected. And it's actually the number one question that I get asked is, how do I find my purpose? What is my purpose here? What am I doing here?
This is a whole nother
Why am I here? I know.
This is a whole nother
crap.
We need to cover this. Thank you for that question, because I think maybe we'll talk about that next week.
Yes.
So we can really get into it.
Or do some shorts. We're doing shorts again today, you guys. We're going to try that out.
Okay. So I guess my recommendation.
What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, my take on that is, listen, you know what? It's all about visualization. And because I recommend that if you've not watched it, if you have Netflix, watch Arnold. It's a documentary about, no, I'm not kidding you guys. Listen, you guys, I'm not even kidding you. I am not a huge Arnold. I was not a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. But when he was a teenager, he came across first of all, he saw this bodybuilder guy in a movie, and he was like, whoa.
Hercules.
The Hercules, right? So he was like, ooh, I want to be that guy, right? Then he realized that guy was like a bodybuilder, and he started getting these bodybuilder magazines. He didn't know anything about bodybuilding, but he saw those guys and he decided that that's what he wanted to be. He put those pictures. He's a teenager. He's 15 years old when he's doing this, living in Austria with a really strict parent who hit him and his brother and stuff like that.
An
abusive father and all this stuff. And all he wanted was to get out of there. And he would lay in his bed. So he had these, bodybuilder guys on his taped up on his wall, and his mom was like, oh geez, do we have a problem here? Because here he is, gazing at men, laying on his bed gazing at men. So she was a little bit worried, he says in his documentary, but he literally focused on that, and he's like, I want this is what I want to be. And he made it happen by just saying, this is what I want to be. He had a vision of it, and he stayed focused on that, and the things happen. He made the things happen. So that's how you can get what you want.
I love what Kat's saying, because yes, that's what manifestation looks like. I want to talk about the mundane things that we need to do, because oftentimes we're like, if I just focus on this goal, everything will happen. There is also something else that you have to do when you are trying to create a life that you want. You are going to get things that come into your life that do not align with what you want. And you have to have the courage to say no to them. You have to literally say, nope, don't want that. You can't, you got to let go of all of those things about people pleasing, family pleasing, being there for your part, whatever it is. If you really want the thing, if something comes into your life and it does not align, then you have to let it go.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it's just another block. It's just another thing. It's just another way for you to interrupt the flow of looking at your goal from far away. Because this is what spell work is, right? When we do spells, you're supposed to have an image of the result in your mind, the mantra that brings the thing closer to you. And if you allow a bunch of shit in that doesn't even align with it, the spell's like, do you really want this? Because I was, all this other stuff is coming in and you're saying yes to this, but over here is this goal that you were looking for. And you're not working towards that. You're actually like getting distracted and you're letting people pull your energy in different directions. So the mundane part of the spell or manifestation is to continually say no to the things that do not align with what you're seeking. That's it.
Yep.
We just gave you guys the whole secret to success in this
there
world.
There you go.
Have the mental image and the foresight to know what it looks like in the future, and then everything else that doesn't align, cut it out. And that includes everything. And don't think that for a second the universe isn't going to put stuff in your way that's like, look at this, it's really nice, you might like it, hey. And they're going to expect you to, take it, but you have to say no to it, because that's part of the evolution of how you can stay committed to the thing that you want in order to get the goal attained.
Yep.
That's it.
All right.
And with that.
And that concludes. Sorry,
we ran a little late.
Sorry, we ran over. For
Yeah,
those of you who are watching this after the fact, we try to keep this at 30 minutes. We went a little bit long tonight, but we covered some pretty big topics.
Yes.
Thank you all everybody for being here with us. And for those of you who are rewatching this later, thank you. We love you.
Thank you, Susanna. I really appreciate your comment down there. She says, I'm an old lady witch, and I really appreciate that you appreciate what you put out into the world. Thank you for sharing. Oh my gosh. That's why I do this. We do this for you. Exactly. That's it. We want to put good things out into the world and help people find their purpose, path, and passion. I think that's a saying.
Oh my gosh.
Have a wonderful night, you guys, and we will see you next week.
All right.
Bye.